In case you haven't heard, for the next series of competitive Pokemon, Series 13, they're going to be allowing mythical Pokemon. So this is your full guide on how to catch all of them. How's it going, everybody? Blaine here for Bridge4 Games. Thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me today, because you're not going to want to miss this one. So yeah, earlier in the week, they actually announced that for Series 13 of competitive battles, you're going to be able to use mythical Pokemon. And this is pretty crazy because they've never had this before in really any format. So it's going to be really kind of interesting to see how these Pokemon shake things up. But mythical Pokemon are notoriously difficult to catch. A lot of people don't know where you can even start finding them. And honestly, some of them are going to be a lot easier to find than others. So even though I've made some guides on the channel before, I wanted to just kind of narrow this down, make kind of a condensed version for you guys, just showing you how to go ahead and get those mythical Pokemon so you can start battling with them as soon as the ladder turns over on September 1st. So that being said, today we're going to go ahead and cover how to get all of them, as long as they appear in Sword and Shield. Now, battles do take place in Sword and Shield, so if a mythical Pokemon is not in there, obviously it's not going to be able to really apply to this list. So the Pokemon that we're kind of talking about here are going to be Deoxys, Manaphy, Phione, Arceus, Darkrai, Shaman, Meloetta, and I believe Hoopa are not coded in Sword and Shield. Nothing we can do about it. However, if you want to go ahead and get them for your collection, you're in luck. I actually made an entire video about how to get a 100% complete living dex, and I'm going to go ahead and link that ahead now. And what that video will cover, if you go to the end, I talk about how to get every single mythical Pokemon, regardless of where it's legal, and where you can find them to add them to your Pokemon home accounts. So if you're looking to get them for your collection, go ahead, check the video out. It will help you a ton. But for right now, we're going to stick to the ones that are going to be showing up in those competitive battles. So I don't want to take any more of your time. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to jump in and get started with everybody's favorite mythical Pokemon, Mew, and how you can find it. There are several options. But before we do, I just want to take a second to ask that if you like the videos we have here on the channel, please make sure that you give them a big ol' thumbs up, and also consider subscribing to the channel, because honestly, it really does help us out, and it's really the only way YouTube will know that you love our content. So that being said, thank you so much in advance. But I've taken enough of your time. Let's go ahead and start with Mew and how you can add this mythical Pokemon to your next battle team. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and start with everybody's favorite genetic cat Pokemon, Mew. So now if you need Mew, you're in luck because there are so many options for how to get it. Now first and foremost, what I think is going to be the easiest option is to get it through Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Now if you go ahead and boot those games up and go to Floaroma Town, if you happen to have save data from Let's Go Pikachu or Let's Go Eevee on your Switch, you're going to be able to just get a Mew from an NPC, no problem. I'm going to have a picture of this on the screen now, by the way, so just look for this character and you'll be able to get it without any real issue. Alternatively, if you don't want to do that, you can go ahead and go into Pokemon Go and get it through one of the first special research missions in the entire game. All you need to do is go ahead, talk to Professor Willow, follow the requests, and you'll be able to get a Mew, no problem. Now, alternatively, if you don't like any of those options and you have a little bit of money to blow, what you can do is if you have Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu, or I think it actually works with Pokemon Sword and Shield, you can go ahead and find a brand new Pokeball Plus item. So what that's going to let you do, it actually comes with a gift Mew inside. They are able to transfer off your Pokeball Plus, and a lot of people believe it's only able to be transferred to Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, but I've read online there are ways to actually transfer it into Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now, obviously, this method does cost money, real dollars, 50 of them actually, if you can find one. So I don't really recommend this because I don't really think it's the most advantageous method, but it is an option for you. And look, one last thing. We're not ignorant here on the channel. We know that all the hip, cool kids are getting some of their Pokemon through, let's say, outside means. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is put a picture on screen right now of the most recent Pokemon distribution they did from you. So if you happen to need a reference material for what kind of Pokemon are going to be legal and what kind of data is going to be accepted, try this one. Alternatively, if you get a Mew in a trade, use this to make sure that everything is 100% legal and there's no problems. Alright, so that actually begs the question, why would you want to use Mew in competitive? It is kind of a very interesting Pokemon. It actually has base 100s for all of its stats, which is good and underwhelming at the same time. So offensively and with speed, it's incredibly average. However, with bulk, having 100 for HP in both defenses is pretty good. So you're probably going to be looking at Mew being a tank that can also do some pretty okay chip damage. Now, one thing that's very interesting and unique about Mew is it gets access to every single TM, TR, and tutor move in the game. So really, things like statuses, things like different, hazards, or just, any sort of like, support move, like a recovery move, or helping to boost the stats of your ally, things like that, Mewtwo is going to do really well. It also has access to self-boosting moves like Swords Dance and Nasty Plot. So, honestly, it can have whatever sort of boosting move or support move you want. In addition to really whatever coverage move you want, it can be physical or special. So, honestly, it's not going to really stand out that much in terms of how much damage it can deal, but it's incredibly versatile. So it's really going to give you just a million options if you need a very specific role filled on your team. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that it is weak to both Bug and Dark. Now, these aren't like huge problems. However, things like Incineroar do still exist and are going to see play. So you could take a random Dark hit now and then. And a lot of Pokemon tend to just use things like U-Turn to switch out. So Mew could take kind of a chip there. It also is weak to Ghost. And there's not a ton of huge Ghost threats. However, things like Shadow Calyrex exist. Also things like Dawnwing Necrozma and Lunala exist. And a lot of Pokemon have random access to just Ghost moves. So just be careful out there if you're bringing your cat. Alright, now we're going to hop over to the next mythical Pokemon in line, and that is Celebi, Joe Merrick of Cerebi's favorite Pokemon. So I want to make sure I am doing it justice and giving you guys the best information for how to get one. Now, unfortunately, Celebi does not have 3 methods to get it, but it does have 2. And one of them is a lot easier than the other one. So first and foremost, the best method I'm going to recommend for you is Pokemon Go. After you go ahead and very fittingly catch that Mew in your Pokemon Go special research, the next one up is going to be your Celebi. So once you unlock that request, go ahead, complete all the steps, and you'll get Celebi for your battle team. Alright, but if you don't want to go through Pokemon Go, there is another option. However, this one is a little more complicated. If you do have a 3DS system that has Pokemon Crystal on there from the Virtual Console, in the post-game, you are able to actually encounter a Celebi in Ilex Forest. Now, you do have to battle it, catch it. The cool thing is it can be shiny, which is really nice. So the only issue is, even though it's farmable, you do have to beat the entire game to get there. And things are getting really weird with the eShop for the 3DS. Eventually, they said they're going to be basically closing it down. So I don't know if you'll be able to buy any more games, and probably you won't be able to. So honestly, if you want to use this method, you're going to have to do it pretty soon. And they also don't take credit cards, so you'd have to buy an eShop gift card and give it to yourself. Now, you can buy those on Amazon, which is pretty easy. But again, it is a little bit complicated if you don't already have everything. However, if you do have all the software and hardware all ready to go, you can go ahead and take your Celebi from your Crystal game, put it into Pokemon Bank, and then transfer from Bank to Home, then put it into your Sword and Shield game, and you'll be all set. I realize saying you'll be all set after like 5 steps is kind of a lot, but here we are. Now, if you don't have a 3DS with Crystal on it, and you don't even have a 3DS, you can find them on the secondhand market used with the Virtual Console games on there. However, you're probably going to be looking at about $200 to $225 to actually get it. So that's kind of a lot, so I really don't recommend it. And in this case, I just recommend going into Pokemon Go and getting it that way. Oh yeah, and before I forget, I'm going to put the card for the most recent Celebi distribution on screen right now, just so you have it for your references. But that beckons the question, why would you want to use Celebi in the first place? And that has a very simple answer. You don't want to. Celebi is awful. Look, Celebi is a pretty interesting Pokemon. I love that it has an onion head and is a time traveler. Whatever, it's neat. And grass typing is pretty good. However, Celebi has so many weaknesses that it really, in my humble opinion, is not worth using. So first of all, not only is it weak to Bug, but now it's a 4 times weakness and Dark. It's also weak to Ice, Flying, Fire. It's just something you don't want to deal with. It's so problematic to use this Pokemon in VGC or even in singles because its typing is just not there. And frankly, every single thing it can do, Mew can do. And Mew has way less weaknesses and has access to even more moves. So unfortunately, Celebi is pretty much invalidated by Mew simply existing. So just use Mew. You're going to save yourself a ton of time. So even though you can get it if you want to following my guide, just use Mew. It's so much better. And that's going to go ahead and bring us over to Jirachi, the Wishmaker Pokemon. Now, much like Celebi, Jirachi has 2 methods for how to actually get it. One, of course, is going into Pokemon Go and getting it after you get Celebi. Obviously, these seem to be following right in lines. That works really well. However, if you don't want to use that, go back into your Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl games, go back to Floroma Town, and if you have save data for Sword and Shield, which, based on the fact that you're playing competitive Pokemon, you probably do, you'll be able to talk to that same NPC and get a Jirachi gift for really no effort and no time. I really recommend this method because it is so much easier and so much quicker, and really is just your best option. Oh, and as far as options, I'm just going to go ahead and throw a picture of that Wonder card for the most recent one on screen now. Again, just so you have it for your records, in case you ever need to reference it for any reason. Hey guys, this is actually Blaine from the editing room. I actually realized something as I was editing this video. So Jirachi is actually going to be coming as a distribution later on this month. I'm not really sure what the criteria is or how you get the code just yet, but it is expected to be released around the end of the month. So if you do want to get Jirachi, you don't want to go through BDSP or Pokemon Go, this is another option available to you. All right, back to the video. Now, of course, I want to talk about why you would actually want to use Jirachi in your game. It is an interesting Pokemon that does bring kind of a lot to the table. So first off, it's Psychic and Steel, which is okay. We've had Pokemon like that in the past, like Metagross, be very, very strong. Now, Jirachi's biggest gimmick is it has Serene Grace, so it can double the effects of moves that have like a chance to burn or a chance to flinch. So usually you're going to be spamming things like Iron Head or moves like Fire Punch, Thunder Punch to try and get burns, paralysis, stuff like that. My personal feelings on Jirachi is I don't really like it, especially in Sword and Shield. So we already have Metagross, and we also have Solgaleo that have the same typings, but frankly, they have a lot more firepower and in some cases a lot more bulk. Now, Jirachi could Dynamax and you could use it that way. However, I just don't really see the value of it that's not already brought by the Pokemon we have. Even though it does have a really good typing with a lot of resistances, it is weak to some common things like fire and, ground, as well as ghost. So in this format, you really need to be pretty careful if your Pokemon is not a defensive tank and is weak to ghost. So as awesome as this is, if you do choose to use it, be very careful. But if you are able to actually pull it off, it is a very strong Pokemon in the right situations. Now, since all of the Gen 4 Pokemon are pretty much not going to be in Sword and Shield, specifically, I think this was done because of BDSP and Arceus, but because of that, we're going to be skipping right to Gen 5 with our next mythical Victini. Now, Victini is going to be pretty straightforward. It's just going to be only available in Pokemon Go after you complete your Gen 4 missions and your special requests there. So go ahead, complete those, get your Victini, and you're going to be all set. Now, I have some words to say about Victini. Victini is one of the most potent mythicals we are going to have out of all of them. I think this Pokemon is going to be fantastic and competitive. Now, if you do take a look at it, it doesn't seem much better than things like a Mew or anything like that, but hear me out. The reason Victini is so good is because it has a move called V-Create. Now, the format for competitive is a little bit warped because of the Pokemon in it. Two of the most viable threats, three actually, for, your mythicals and things like that and your legendaries are going to be Zacian Crowned, Magearna, and Melmetal. All of those are huge threats because they are such strong Pokemon. However, what's really special is the fact that Victini's signature move V-Create is a 180 base power fire move. So if you give Victini like an Adamant Nature and 252 EVs, this thing is able to one-hit KO Magearna and Zacian. It is just such a big deal that I think the sheer fact that it can do this is going to earn it some places on teams. So I don't know if this is going to be like the best Pokemon ever to be used in competitive, but I highly, highly recommend you use it, or at least have access to it, because being able to just do that to some of the biggest threats in the format is something that's going to turn a lot of heads and is really, honestly, a really big deal. Oh yeah, and before I forget, I got so excited talking about Victini. Here's a picture of the most recent distribution for Victini. So if you just want to know what that might look like or know any of the details, here you go. And that's going to actually go ahead and take us over to Keldeo. Now, Keldeo is a Pokemon that is actually, I think, the easiest to get on this entire list. So if you do have Sword and Shield, which you probably should if you're watching this video, go ahead and get the DLC, go to the Crown Tundra, and then you're going to have to follow the mission where you get all the other Swords of Justice, Terrakion, Virizion, and Cobalion. Once you have those, you'll be able to get a second request that'll lead you right to Keldeo, and you can just go ahead and catch it, no problem. It's really that simple, it's very easy to catch, and you're going to have no problem adding it to your team. Now, Keldeo is a very interesting Pokemon. It is water and fighting. That's a very okay typing, and it's a pretty decent special attacker. One thing I do like is that Sacred Sword can actually hit on the physical side, even though it is a special move, which really kind of bodes well to Keldeo stats and things like that. Unfortunately, I think the issue is that in this format, Keldeo doesn't really have much of a place because Urshifu Rapid Strike exists. And, I mean, yeah, they are very much two sides to kind of the same strategy. One's physical, one's special. The issue is, like, you look at something like Keldeo where its base moves are going to be like 80 to 90 power unless you want to use Hydro Pump. Then you look at something like Urshifu that's going to be spamming close combats and things like, Surging Strikes that are always going to be crits. And then it even has the G-Max Rapid Flow. I don't know. The G-Max move, the big ol' when it turns into a white and blue, Kung Fu Panda, that thing having access to that is just so much stronger than Max Geyser, especially because you can hit through Max Guards. I don't really know why you would want to use Keldeo. But I could be wrong. You know, Mike, one of the guys here on the channel, he loves Keldeo and would probably kill me for saying all this, so there you go. Alright, and that's going to bring us to our next Gen 5 Mythical, Genesect. Now, Genesect is a very cool-looking Pokemon, and obviously a lot of people are going to want to experiment with it. There's one slight issue. Genesect isn't available pretty much anywhere right now. However, coming to Pokemon Go on August 10th, Genesect will finally be added to the games. So even though it is only the, 5th right now, if you wait 5 whole days, you'll be able to get it in Pokemon Go in some raids and some special research. So, I know 5 days seems like an eternity, but if you don't use that method, you don't have any other options. So go ahead, wait a couple days, go into Pokemon Go, and you're going to be all set to add Genesect to your team. But now the question is, do you want to add Genesect to your team? And honestly, I'm not so sure. Genesect is pretty cool. It boasts pretty decent speed and pretty good attack, as well as special attack if I'm not mistaken. The issue is, if you want to use any of its drives, you have to take up its held item, which isn't really worth it because usually you're going to get more value out of a normal held item anyways. The other issue is that it's very weak to fire, and you know, fire... So I was talking about this in another video. Steel is such a good typing in VGC because it resists so much stuff, and you need a reliable way to get through those steel-type Pokemon. Fire is a common option, which is why fire happens to show up everywhere in VGC on at least, like, pretty much every team. So the fact that Genesect is weak to fire 4 times, I don't really know if it has a place in VGC, especially when it's competing against other steel types, like, again, Zacian, Magearna, and Melmetal. But if you want to go ahead and try it, prove me wrong. I would really love to see Genesect get some love in VGC. And that's going to bring us to X and Y for Diancie. Now, Diancie is a very interesting rock and fairy type Pokemon, and unfortunately, it isn't available anywhere. So if you haven't already added it to your collection, you're going to be a little bit in trouble actually getting it because you don't really have any options for it outside of trading. However, if you are wondering what it looked like in the past, you can use this icon right here. Alright, now look, I gotta be honest with you guys. It's not that big a deal that Diancie isn't available anywhere because honestly, it's not that good. So, it certainly has very, very high defenses, but it has a very bad speed tier that it's slow, but not slow enough to be a good Trick Room mon. It's just one of those classic problems. And it really has kind of no offense to speak of. If you are able to Dynamax it and then get off a policy, it could be a pretty threatening Pokemon that way, especially if you are able to get it in Trick Room and kind of find some way to make it underspeed some of the common threats. The one thing I absolutely hate about it is that our 3 biggest Pokemon we were talking about are going to be Steel types. And of course it is 4 times weak to Steel. So, I think it's a cool Pokemon. I just think it's competing a lot for what it does. And unfortunately, I just don't think it's going to have that much of a home, again, with how many big threats exist. Especially if you're coming across a Zacian. Like, normally if it just had something like Iron Head, you could Dynamax and maybe be okay. But the fact that that stupid Behemoth Blade doubles, and Zacian has +1 attack, just don't use Diancie. It's fine. Just don't use it. And that's going to bring us to Volcanion, who is maybe one of the most polarizing Pokemon for how good it is. Some people love it and some people hate it. However, the issue is, regardless if you love it or hate it, it's not available anywhere either. So much like Diancie, if you don't have it from previous events, you're kind of SOL. However, you are able to trade for it, and of course, it did look like this in the past when it was distributed, so, you know, if you do have some other creative way of finding one, I can recommend that method instead. Alright, but let's get down to brass tacks about Volcanion. It is a fire and water type Pokemon. It's got a pretty good special attack and decent bulk. However, one thing I really don't like about it is it's, like, because of its typings, it has a ton of weaknesses. So, it's not 4 times weak to anything, but it's weak to just a lot of common stuff. So it's weak to electric, rock, and ground, which, you know, again, this isn't like backbreaking stuff, but ground, electric, and rock show up a lot in VGC, and I just don't think Volcanion brings enough to the table to really make up for that issue. Additionally, it has that terrible, terrible speed stat of 70 base, which, again, it's too fast to be a slow Pokemon and too slow to be a fast Pokemon. So, ultimately, it's going to end up sitting there, not being able to really do anything, and just taking these giant hits. But again, if somebody's able to make it work, please do. Volcanion got, like, no love whatsoever in the games. So, and you know, and in the story and the movie, there was, like, really nothing for it. So, please, find a way to make this Pokemon interesting and good. Please, please, I want it to be good. Alright guys, that takes us to the next mythical Pokemon on this list, and that is Magearna. Now Magearna is a really awesome Pokemon that people are going to be experimenting with a lot for VGC, and I am so happy to report to you guys that even though we had some bad luck with the last couple, Magearna is one of the easiest ones to get on this list. So you are going to need to have a Sun and Moon or Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon game booted up to get your Magearna. But what you need to do, go ahead and open your game and go to the function that lets you scan QR codes. And you see this QR code on the screen right here? All you gotta do is go ahead, scan this QR code into your game, and you will have a Magearna given to your game just like that. No work. It is just delivered to you. No muss, no fuss. Take that Magearna, send it into Pokemon Bank, transfer it to home, and guess what? You're all set. You got a Magearna. Now, even though this method is silly easy, there is another method that is almost just as easy. If you have a completed Pokedex in-game, all you have to do is connect to Pokemon Home and let it register that your Pokedex is complete. And guess what? You're going to get the original color Magearna as a gift added to your games. So there are two incredibly easy options to get Magearna. And honestly, they combined, if you already have the decks completed, are only going to take you less than 10 minutes to get both. It is awesome, and it's so great because it's a Pokemon you're going to really want to have. Alright, now why is Magearna so good? Magearna is a Fairy and Steel type, which is amazing typing, by the way. But on top of that, it has access to an incredibly powerful Fairy type move called Cannon, which can pick up a lot of knockouts. And that is really good because even though Cannon does reduce your special attack after you use it, Magearna has an ability called Soul Heart. When an opposing Pokemon is knocked out, Magearna gets a +1 special attack boost. First off, you're going to be able to recoup some of those losses from using that move, but forget about that. More importantly, when you Dynamax this thing, it is going to be tanky AF and is going to be able to pick up KOs very easily and just start snowballing and picking up all those boosts. You know how potent Ice Rider Calyrex and Shadow Rider Calyrex are when they start snowballing? This is like that with an even better typing. It's super easy to use with a weakness policy or even a life orb, so the fact that it's so good and is taking some of the spotlight away from Zacian should tell you everything you need to know about why you want to at least experiment with this Pokemon or have an answer to it. You're going to see this everywhere, so make sure you know how to take it out. And I hope you guys are feeling good and riding high over how easy it is to get Magearna because I have some bad news. So another one of the better Pokemon that people are going to be talking about is Marshadow. So Marshadow is a very interesting Pokemon, a mythical that came to us from Gen 7, and unfortunately it's not available anywhere either. However, I do expect that to change in the future because we haven't had any distributions for that too recently. We did have this one here that I'm going to throw up on screen while I'm talking, but unfortunately we haven't had anything more recent. The good news is though, even though we haven't had anything super recent, I believe Pokemon is aware that people are going to want these Pokemon, so it wouldn't surprise me if we do get one somewhat soon, or, you know, once we kind of transition into Gen 9. So, I don't know, it's a very cool Pokemon, and I hope you're able to get it because it's a lot of fun to tinker with, even if it isn't the best one on this list. Alright, now let's talk about why Marshadow is so special. So, it has a very unique typing in Fighting and Ghost. Now, the reason this made such a big splash when it was released is that if you look at all the Pokemon in the game up to Gen 8, it's able to basically get off a neutral stab attack on every single one of them, meaning that there's no real way you can wall Marshadow and get into a situation where it can't do any neutral attacks. Now, if you've ever played competitive, you know that this is a very big deal because even though you're not always going to be hitting for super effective, the fact that you can always get off a move that's not resisted means that it's going to be doing very consistent damage. Now, this is shaken up a little bit with Hisui and Zoroark. It doesn't have the ability to even hit that. However, that being said, it's not that big a deal because it's not going to be in any of the competitive formats we're looking at. Now, on top of that, Marshadow has a very good special attack and speed stat, and it even has Technician. So if you want to use any of its lower base power moves, like a Shadow Sneak, it's going to be able to actually get boosted and become a lot more powerful. And if that wasn't good enough, Marshadow also has a move called Spectral Thief. Now what that does, you're able to actually go ahead and hit a Pokemon, but before you do the damage, you take any of the boosts that Pokemon may have. So if you're looking at a Zacian that got +1 from Intrepid Sword, if Marshadow has like a Choice Scarf, go ahead, use Spectral Thief, and it'll be able to take that +1 attack and then hit Zacian with that Ghost move that is Stab and +1 boosted. It's pretty incredible, and honestly, I'm shocked at how good this Pokemon can be, at least on paper. It really shook things up in the Uber metagame for singles when it was released, so I'm very eager to see what it may do in VGC, and if people do use it, it is weak to Flying and Fairy, two very common types in VGC, so I'm very eager to see if it kind of can overcome the hurdles it has in front of it. But if any Pokemon can, Marshadow sure can. Alright, but the next Pokemon we're going to be talking about is Zeraora. Now, Zeraora is another mythical out of Gen 7, and while I'm talking here, I'm just going to go ahead and throw a picture of a previous event for it up on screen now, just so you have something to look at. But that being said, Zeraora, unfortunately, is kind of in the same bank as Marshadow. It's not available anywhere right now. They did do a distribution for it through a raid at the very start of Sword and Shield, but unfortunately, we don't have it now. That being said, though, I don't think it's that big of a deal, and let me tell you why. Zeraora is going to be living a really bad life going forward because Regieleki does everything Zeraora can better than it. Now, admittedly, Regieleki does not have access to a fairy type attack or a fighting type attack. It doesn't matter. If you want to devote a spot on your team to having a fast, fragile, and powerful electric type Pokemon, you're going to use Regieleki 100% of the time. So the reason why, it's going to be able to outspeed things that you need to outspeed that unfortunately Zeraora is unable to outspeed. In addition, Regieleki can do so much more damage with Stab thanks to it having that incredible ability Transistor. It makes the damage output of Regieleki so stupidly high that any electric Pokemon that you're going to be using, or at least considering using, is going to have to look at Regieleki as kind of a base mark for what the baseline is for what you can do. Like, the fact that Zeraora cannot outspeed a lot of things and doesn't have the same level of damage output makes it kind of totally useless in VGC. I know that's a really harsh thing to say, but unfortunately it's true. So the fact that you can't really get this one anywhere isn't that big a deal because you're probably not going to want to use it anyway. Alright, but I know we had some bad news. I'm glad to get things back on a positive note here with Meltan and Melmetal. They are Pokemon that are very easy to get as well. So Meltan, you can actually get right in Pokemon Go through special research, or if you're able to actually pair your game up with Pokemon Home or Pokemon Let's Go Eevee or Pikachu, you're able to actually open the special Meltan box, and a bunch of Meltans are just going to appear for I think a half an hour. So honestly, you can just go ahead and get as many Meltan as you want. You are going to have to worry about transferring them into your games. However, there are a couple ways to do that, which I want to cover real quick. So if you do have a ton of Meltan, you can send them directly to Home. Although I do know this costs, I believe, Stardust, so it is a little bit expensive to do. So if you have Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu, just use it that way. Send all your Meltans into Eevee and Pikachu, then you can send it from there into Home, and then from there into Sword and Shield. Now, in order to evolve it, you are going to have to give it 400 candies. So you can do that in Pokemon Go, and obviously you get candy by catching all your Meltans there. So that's one of the ways you can get your Melmetal is just evolving it. But if you don't want to do that, the first time you actually link up your Pokemon Go account with your Pokemon Home account, you're going to actually get a mystery gift when you send over your first Pokemon, and that is going to be a Gigantamax-capable Melmetal. Now, honestly, this is super, super easy, so as long as you have a Pokemon Go account, you should be able to get both these Pokemon no problem. With that being said, though, just because I know you guys have liked looking at these, I'm going to put up the cards for both of them on the screen right now. So take a look at them, and obviously if you want to add them to your games, you will have a ton of options to go about doing that. Alright, now let's talk about the competitive viability of these guys. So, Meltan, poop. Throw it out, you're not going to ever use it. But Melmetal is a little bit of a different story. Melmetal is honestly a very interesting Pokemon. So, it's pure Steel type, which is really solid. And then it has a very high attack stat and a very high defense stat, with a pretty poor special defense stat. So an option for it would be to use it with Assault Vest to kind of help cure that problem. However, its base stat is only 65, so you'd be raising it to effectively a 95. I know that's not exactly how it works. I'm just giving you guys an idea. But the good news is that it is very slow. It only has a 34 base speed. So you are able to use it in Trick Room somewhat effectively. Now, the real consideration comes to whether or not you want to Gigantamax it or not. So its Gmax move is Gmax Meltdown, I believe. If I mess that up, I'm going to put the real name on screen right now. But what that does, it's a Steel type move that prevents your opponent from using the same move twice in a row. Now, is this good? I mean, it can be. If your opponent has a Fire type move, well, Victini is not going to use their move more than once anyways, but if you have something using a Flamethrower or a Fire Blast, and you want to prevent it from using that more than once, it's certainly an option. But that being said, you're probably not going to want to use the Steel move on it anyways. The alternative would be using just a Dynamax Melmetal, which would get the move where it boosts your defense by 1. So I think that may be actually a better way to use it. I know a lot of people may think I'm crazy, but I think getting the stat boost is better than a potential gimmick. So, I don't know. Try them both out, see whatever one you want. Either way, it's a very strong Pokemon and is going to be an asset to your team no matter what. Alright guys, and we made it. We're actually talking about the last mythical on the list. The mythical from Gen 8, Zarude. So, Zarude is a very interesting Pokemon. It actually, because it's so recent, it is native to Sword and Shield. It has had a ton of distributions up to this point. I'm going to throw some cards for them on screen right now. But it is only available right now in Pokemon Go. Now, this has actually been a recent addition. It wasn't always available in Pokemon Go until I think the last month or so. So, awesome, good news for you guys. And you are going to be able to get it really easily. There's special research for it. So, go ahead, unlock your special research, and you're going to be all set to add this crazy monkey to your team. And by the way, it's based on a cryptid, like some kind of mythical creature in Britain. But in reality, it was probably just a monkey that went crazy and started terrorizing people in ancient England. So, I don't know. I find that really funny. But let's talk about how good it is competitively. Now, Zarude is not great. And I'm going to tell you why. First of all, its stats are pretty mediocre. It is interesting that it has two forms, the Data Zarude and the normal Zarude. The issue is, though, it is dark and grass, which is a really bad typing when you're talking about weaknesses. So it is weak to fighting, fire, bug, ice, flying. I'm probably missing one. It's weak to everything. Weak to fire. And, you know, it's just weak to so many things. Really, Pokemon designed it as more of a support Pokemon because it has a lot of healing moves. The problem with it, though, is that it doesn't have the natural bulk to survive and be a good healer. Unfortunately, when it comes to being something like a healing Pokemon, Comfy just knocks this thing out of the park. Oh yeah, it's weak to Fairy too. So, ultimately, you're probably never going to really want to use Zarude. I mean, that being said, you can give it a try, but the issue is that when you're talking about grass Pokemon, it's easily overshadowed by stuff like Venusaur, and when you're talking about Dark-type Pokemon, it's easily overshadowed by things like Incineroar or even Urshifu Dark. So, at the end of the day, you can try it if you want, but I really can't give it my recommendation because I don't think it's that good. Alright guys, we did it. We made it. We have covered how to get every mythical Pokemon in Sword and Shield just in time to be able to use them when Series 13 rolls around on September 1st. I'm so glad I was able to give you guys this information because when they announced mythicals were coming, a lot of people were blindsided because they had no idea how to get them. So hopefully I have made this just a little bit easier for you guys. And with my inclusion of those cards, I made it even easier for a certain portion of my demographic audience. So, that being said, everybody, let me know down in the comments below what you guys think is going to be the best mythical in VGC. Honestly, there are a lot of options, and I'm very excited to see which ones you guys may go with. So, that being said, everybody, I just want to say thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me as we covered this tutorial guide. If you did like the video, please make sure that you absolutely impact that like button in the face, because again, it's really the only way YouTube knows that you guys like my content. And by the way, also consider subscribing because that helps as well, and you're going to be helping the channel grow so I can continue to bring you guys content just like this. So, that being said, everybody, again, I've been Blaine for Bridge 4 Games. As always, please remember that the best Pokemon games are the ones that you love to play, and the proper ways to play them are however you have the most fun. And as always, everybody, please make sure that you have a happy, epic, awesome, and amazing day, and I will see you in the next video. See you around. Bye-bye.